elegant silver covering that elicited surprised murmurs from the crowd. Luke set a finger to the gleaming metal, letting Matthew know that he well remembered who it was that had so damaged him and had not forgiven, nor ever would. He narrowed his eyes, made a slitting motion over his throat, and spurred his horse on, all the while turning to stare at Matthew, who stood unmoving until horse and rider disappeared. "The sooner we leave the better," Simon muttered, as they hurried away from the crowds. They took a sharp left, having to lean backward so as not to topple down the slippery, steep close that led into Cowgate. Matthew agreed, still shaken by the naked hatred that shone out of Luke's eyes. "I want you to do something for me." Simon looked at him with a certain caution, but nodded. "I want you to draw up a document today that makes you the guardian of Mark should anything happen to me." "Nothing will happen to ye." "Mayhap not," Matthew shrugged. "But unless I draw up such a deed, then both Mark and Alex may find themselves in the not-so-tender care of my brother. After all, Luke's my closest male relative, unfortunately." Matthew's gut twisted at the thought, and it was apparent wee Simon agreed, an uncharacteristic scowl settling on his round face. "I'll do it when we get back to our room, and you can sign it and have it witnessed by the landlord." When Matthew prepared to leave for the evening, Simon frowned. "Should you go abroad alone, what with Luke being here?" "I'm invited to dine with Minister Crombie and his brother," Matthew said. "I don't think I'll be in any danger there." Simon grunted. "Not there, no, but in the going and the coming you might be." Matthew strapped on his sword. "I'll be careful." And damn if his brother was going to stop him from partaking of the company of men he respected and liked. It was a long evening, an evening of discussion and far too much wine, and Matthew felt comfortably mellow when he made his way back to the inn. Tomorrow he'd be on his way home, rid of this damp, dark and teeming city, and soon he'd be at Hillview, with his wife and bairn around him. Something clattered against the cobbles, and he threw a look over his shoulder, squinting through the dark. He frowned and blinded his lantern, standing very still as he listened. Soft rustling noises, and a cat ran across the narrow close. Matthew wanted to laugh out loud with relief. Still, he chose not to unbind his lantern and increased his pace. His skin prickled, his pulse thudded loudly. "You're being fanciful," he berated himself. "It was just a cat, aye." There was a sound behind him, and he wheeled, a hand on his sword. He never managed to pull it free. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw something, and then his head exploded with pain. Alex woke with a gasp, convinced that something had happened to Mark. From his trundle bed came snuffling noises, and she sank back against the pillows, trying to bring her heart rate under control. For some reason she was still agitated, and after an hour of turning in bed she gave up on sleep. It was just some silly dream, she told herself, running a hand over Matthew's pillow before rising to pace up and down the room. She stood by the window and stared out into the dark, arms coming up to cross her chest. Something was very wrong, and she had no idea what it was, but her whole body was clanging with alarms. "Bad night?" Joan, her sister-in-law, asked next morning. Alex yawned and handed over Mark into Joan's waiting arms. "I couldn't sleep." She nodded a good morning to their housekeeper, Mrs. Gordon, but shook her head at the bowl of porridge. Her insides were clenched tight around a pebble of nagging concern. Just the thought of food made her queasy. With each passing day, Alex grew more nervous, making both Joan and Mrs. Gordon jumpy as well. He should be back by now, and Alex spent far too many hours with her eyes glued to the lane. When she finally heard the sound of horses, she dropped the basket she was carrying, bunched up her skirts and flew up the lane to meet him. She saw Samson riderless, and turned, bewildered, to Simon. Her heart came to a screeching halt before it started up again, and she moved towards the horse, her hands stretched out to touch the man who wasn't there. "Matthew?" Her eyes nailed themselves to Simon's, and the expression she saw in them turned the air in her lungs to lead, a dragging weight that threatened to suffocate her. He was dead. Her Matthew was dead, and oh my...